What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video here on the Samurai Sports Network. And today, as you see by the title, we're going to be talking about who would you pick? Adam Gase, Chris Grier, Mike Tannenbaum, Stephen Ross. You got the owner of the Miami Dolphins, the executive vice president of football operations, the general manager who's in charge of drafting and also helping in free agency, and then the head coach who has the final say of the 53-man roster. We're going to be going over each person in that one, and we're going to start from bottom to top. So we're going to go from head coach to GM to VP to owner. So we're going to go Adam Gase, Chris Grier, Mike Tannenbaum, then Stephen Ross. So let's start with Adam Gase, obviously. A lot of people, at least on Twitter, kind of still believe in Adam Gase. It seems as if there's like a really good minority or crowd, I guess you could call it, that dislikes him, but it seems as if there's a majority that does still believe in Adam Gase and still wants Adam Gase to be the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. It's a little weird if you ask me, because it seemed as if a lot of people weren't really liking Adam Gase at all, and they didn't want anything to do with Adam Gase. They want Adam Gase gone from the Miami Dolphins. So that was interesting for me, but let's talk about what he's done good. Now, record-wise, I believe he is 500, which a lot of people have been comparing him to Joe Philbin, which isn't really a great comparison in my opinion, but he's 500 record-wise. He went 10-6 in his first year, 6-10 in his second year, and now he is 5-5. Now, we're going to kind of take this year by year and talk about what the good was in that year, what the bad was in that year, and then kind of break it down and give an end prediction type of thing for the end of his career with the Miami Dolphins. So, 10-6 the first year. You got 3 J.J. 200-yard rush and games, 2 against the Bills, I believe, and 1 against the Steelers. Those propelled the offense over. You had your starting quarterback playing at an elite level towards the end of that year. I believe he was 7-1 until he got injured. And that stretch that we had after starting 1-3, they finally got their first win against the Cleveland Browns, or was it 1-2? Either way, they get their first win against the Cleveland Browns, which I believe actually, yes, was week 3, off of a touchdown from J.J. in overtime. So that was that win. I believe that they started 1-2. Yes, I believe that was week 3. So they get that going, gets his first win. If you've not looked at it before, you can see a Darren Rizzi clip of him saying, "We're going to win the fucking game. We just won the fucking game, blah, 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 blah." Darren Rizzi, go. Anyways, so plays out very good through the season. It seems as if things are clicking. First couple games weren't really great, but then after that, it became very good. The offense was clicking. As a play caller, he was doing very good plays. The plays seemed to be working. He had his players healthy. They were working really well. The offensive line, although not great, was very good. They had a first-year starter in Laremy Tunsil at left guard that they had drafted after the whole mask situation that happened. And then Ryan Tannehill, of course, gets injured in the third quarter against the Arizona Cardinals off of a Calais Campbell leap that ended up tearing Ryan Tannehill's ACL. It wasn't a very hard tear. It was a grade 1 or grade 2, I believe, which meant in the playoffs he could have come back if they wanted to have him come back. But instead, he decided to opt into stem cell, healing. And so that ended up making Ryan Tannehill go through something else. So we go into the offseason. Brings in a couple of known but not really known pieces. They get rid of Brandon Albert. They bring in Julius Thomas. And things kind of seem like they're going to go well. They bring in Lawrence Timmons. It looks like, okay, these are kind of veteran pieces to help our young guys. During the draft, they drafted very known as well as Raekwon McMillan. They did draft Charles Harris, which was a very iffy pick at the time. They grabbed Cordray Tankersley. They ended up getting Kenyon Drake as well. That was in a previous draft, but they have Kenyon Drake there. So everything was kind of clicking for the Miami Dolphins. Actually, I believe it was that draft. Yes, they did grab Kenyon Drake in that draft as well, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I'm not 100% positive. But I believe it was. No, it wasn't. It was the draft before. I am completely wrong. It was his first draft that they grabbed Kenyon Drake. So, irregardless, they get Cordray Tankersley. There's not really much known else. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then they get into training camp, and Ryan Tannehill, scrambling out of the pocket during a practice, ends up completely tearing his ACL. Therefore, he is out for the rest of the season and finally opts into surgery to repair his torn ACL. We get into the first play of the first preseason game on special teams, and Raekwon McMillan also tears his ACL. Instantly, you got 2 people who are supposed to be impact players out for the season. And then we get Tony Lippett, who also tears his ACL, who was supposed to be that starter with Xavier Howard. And then we end up getting the Jay Cutler experiment. Now, a lot of people wanted Matt Moore, but instead it was Jay Cutler, David Fales, and Matt Moore who were on the team. So that's what we kind of rocked out with, and things started out very well. They were 4-2. It looked like as if Adam Gase was still smarter than everybody else. And then they lost their next, they lost 8 out of their next 10, and they ended up finishing 6-10 after a 4-2 start. He ended up having Matt Moore and David Fales start in that season, as well as Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler flashed here and there, having one of the last 2 wins being against the New England Patriots. And during that entire stretch, there were times where Jay Cutler and the Miami Dolphins offense could have made a play, but instead it resulted in an interception that did not allow the Miami Dolphins to continue and try to advance to the playoffs, which at the time, towards the end of the season, was still a possibility. So from there, a lot of people were saying, okay, well, Ryan Tannehill was injured. There were a lot of injuries for the Miami Dolphins. Next year, he'll be getting more, another draft class will come in. Hopefully, Charles Harris develops. We'll get Raekwon McMillan back. Cordray Tankersley looked very, very good. Things will look out very well. That ended up not happening. So because of that, we go into year 3, and Ryan Tannehill is back. Starts off very well. The Miami Dolphins start 3-0. They lose big against the Patriots. They are now 3-1. They're in a lead until 2 bad mistakes by Ryan Tannehill in the 3rd and 4th quarter. That resulted in a loss against the Bengals. And then from there, things have just been bad. They've just been awful. Brock Osweiler gets a win against the Chicago Bears, which makes the Dolphins 5-3, I believe. Yes, 5-3. I could be wrong. No, 4-3. And then we end up tumbling down, and our only win has been a 13-6 win against the New York Jets, in which the offense only scored 6 points. We come into this weekend against the Green Bay Packers, and the offense had scored 12, 4 field goals. And the verdict right now on Adam Gase from a lot of fans is fire. And I would have to say that my opinion is we could do better. I like Adam Gase as a head coach. I don't like him as a play caller, but I like him as a head coach. But if there was a time where we needed to do better and get out of mediocrity and not stay in the middle, if it means firing Adam Gase, then do it. We move on to general manager Chris Grier. So there's not really a lot to talk about. Year 1 draft was very well. Year 2 draft, it looks like is that they might have missed on Charles Harris. And then year 3 draft so far, drafting 2 tight ends. Look, we all love Mike Gesicki, but he hasn't done anything. And so you could have used that on a backup quarterback. Instead, we didn't. You could have used the Durham Smythe pick, who's never on the field as a backup quarterback, but they didn't. The Jerome Baker pick has been very good. I think a lot of people very, very much enjoy Jerome Baker. Kalen Ballage has had some things here and there. Minka Fitzpatrick has been very good as well. Cornell Armstrong, believe it or not, when he did have to play against the Jets, he was playing pretty good defense, so that's pretty good. Quentin Poling is on the practice squad. I'm probably missing someone, but I don't remember who, to be perfectly honest with you guys. So that's why I'm ended there. I think Chris Grier has done a good job. I think there's no way you fire him. I think if anything, you fire your executive vice president of football operations, Mike Tannenbaum, and move Chris Grier to the executive vice president of football operations and have him hire his own coach, have him hire his own GM, and have it be there. I think that what Stephen Ross needs to do to kind of put Mike Tannenbaum and Stephen Ross in the same situation, let Chris Grier run the show. He's a football guy, came up through the scouting department. He's had very good drafts. Let Chris Grier hire his own GM. Let Chris Grier hire his own head coach, and let him hire people around him that are going to be good. And it's got to be, look, if you're going to hire a young offensive coordinator in that situation, do it. But make sure that that young offensive coordinator is hiring people around him who are not young as well. That doesn't work, and it has not worked, and it's not going to keep working for the Miami Dolphins when you hire these young offensive coaches and proceed to let them hire even younger people around them or even younger coordinators around them who have no experience. You need to go after a former head coach that had a defensive background to be your defensive coordinator. Wade Phillips was an option. The Dolphins decided to pass on Wade Phillips and hire out Matt Burke. What happened to that situation? Wade Phillips goes over to the Los Angeles Rams and Sean McVay, and look at their fucking defense. I think that the executive vice president of football operations and Mike Tannenbaum and the owner of the Miami Dolphins and Stephen Ross have done a horrible job of putting this team in a position to contend, and it has been their fault for years. It has been Stephen Ross's fault for years, and since he hired Mike Tannenbaum after failing with the New York Jets, it has been a failed experiment. If you're going to cut ties right now, if you're Stephen Ross, you don't go out and hire John Harbaugh if he gets fired. It doesn't matter what his record is. If he gets fired, he's getting fired for a reason. It is because the Ravens are not a good team right now. If you're going to go out and make a hire, you move either Chris Grier to executive vice president of operations, or you go out and hire someone who is a seasoned veteran. You hire him as your executive vice president of football operations. You keep Chris Grier as your GM, or you let that executive vice president of operations hire his own GM. You let that executive vice president of operations hire his own coach. You let them hire people around them because you need them to succeed in order for you to succeed. Hard Rock Stadium is beautiful. What you've done with the area is beautiful. What you've done for fans is amazing. Tom Garfinkel is probably the best hire you have made in your entire career as an owner, but he's not on the football side of the field. You need to hire someone who's going to be like Tom Garfinkel to be your offensive guy. So if I had to give a verdict, Stephen Ross, give it up. Hire someone and let them control it. Mike Tannenbaum needs to be fired. Chris Grier is the only stable guy we have right now who has not shown any reason to be fired. If you're going to fire Adam Gase, do it. Don't give us another year of mediocrity. Don't give us another year of failure. If you are going to cut the plug next year, just cut the plug this year. We need to be a step ahead of what we have been in the past decades. I guess you could say in the past couple decades, we need to be a step ahead. We have sucked, and it has not been good. And you know why? It's because of mediocrity. And we cannot have mediocrity anymore. Hope you guys did very much enjoy this video. If you're on DolphinsTalk.com, make sure you hit that subscribe button and come onto YouTube and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about those four and your opinions down below. And as always, peace.